can't imagine why anyone is still counting calories. Yeah. My name's Tim Spector. I'm a Professor of Epidemiology at King's College London. I'm also a co-founder of the gut health company Zoe. Think about quality, think about whole foods. There's no evidence that seed oils are essentially bad for you.
This is Catch-Ups in My Kitchen, the catch-up you need every week in order to look, feel and be the best version of yourself. Join me in my kitchen every week as I speak to a new guest about all things food, health and wellness. Whether it's a specialist in their field, an inspiring story, or just a big girly catch-up full of all the recommendations, tips and advice. In my kitchen, we talk about it all. Hey guys, and welcome back to another very exciting episode of Catch-Ups in My Kitchen with me, Georgia Simmons, host of the podcast. Today is a very, very exciting day as I am joined by Professor Tim Spector. Tim is the co-founder of Zoe and he is the author of multiple books, such as The Diet Myth, Spoon-Fed, Food is Life, Food for Life Cookbook, and Ferment. Tim is at the forefront of his field, and he's also been honoured an OBE for his work with fighting COVID. Tim has written thousands and thousands of articles on nutrition, and today he joins me in my kitchen to go through his 8 principles of eating well. We also go through the risk of too much information and how that can then create an unhealthy relationship with food. We also discuss food in relation to cancer, and we discuss what success looks like to Tim in his career. This is an amazing episode. I was so honoured to be joined by Tim. I'm so excited for you guys to listen to this episode. But before we get into it, I'd love to ask you to click that follow and subscribe button wherever you're listening. Your continuous support has enabled me to get Tim on the podcast, and so I would love for the continuous support to get other amazing guests to join me in the kitchen. Guys, thank you so much in advance, and now let's go and join Tim in the kitchen. Tim, welcome to the kitchen. How are you?
Marvellous.
It's so lovely to have you here. The sun's shining.
Yes, beautiful day.
Very excited for our conversation. For those who don't know, I'm sure there's very few of them, but for those who don't know, do you mind giving a quick introduction as to who you are and what you do?
Okay. It's hard to do that quickly, actually, but my name's Tim Spector. I'm a Professor of Epidemiology at King's College London. I'm also a co-founder of the gut health company Zoe, and I'm also an author of books on the subject of gut health, and I'm a very well published scientist that has written nearly 1,000 articles. So my career's changed a lot over the years. So I started as a rheumatologist, went through epidemiology, genetics, and then about 15 years ago came into nutrition.
Amazing. I mean, I think honestly, you've probably changed people's lives with your work, which is crazy, but we know, for sure the importance of food on how we feel. And I think you've genuinely changed the way people look at food, at what they buy and how they feel, which I think is an amazing thing to do and an amazing career to have.
Yeah, well, I guess that motivates me to keep going because there's still many more people that haven't heard the message. And so, we've certainly reached some people.
Yes,
but there's many more that haven't got the message.
So I'd like to start with a quick fire round about all things food, just to kick things off. So what would you say is your favourite restaurant in London?
I would say I don't have a favourite restaurant because I like going to different ones all the time.
Yeah,
because diversity is really important.
Do you have one that you've been to recently which you would recommend someone else going to?
Trullo in Islington is a really nice sort of modern Italian.
What is one wellness brand or product that you can't live without?
Sounds corny, but I'd say it's my Zoe Daily 30.
Yeah,
because I do have that every day and I travel with it. So it's become my little baby that I have to take
it's a
on
great
my
product.
travels and pack with me. And yeah, that's about it, really.
That's good. What is your hangover meal?
My hangover meal would probably be a shakshuka.
Good one. I also like a shakshuka for dinner, which is a bit random, but sometimes it hits the spot.
I'm very much into flexibility of meals. If you like something, have it for breakfast, lunch or dinner.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters.
What's your favourite coffee shop?
I don't really have one.
Your kitchen?
I know ones I don't like.
Oh, okay. Which is your least favourite coffee shop?
I think probably Cafe Nero.
Yeah.
This disgusting coffee.
I agree.
A lot of the ones that are designed for the sort of mass British market, I can't drink because they're designed to have with lots of milk in it.
Yeah, they're so bitter.
And I don't like with milk. So if I'm trying to have an espresso or something, they are undrinkable.
Yeah. Which food for you is a complete no-no?
I don't think there's any. No food is a complete no-no.
Okay.
I think we should be able to have any food some of the time.
Yeah.
And not be too obsessional about it. So even the ultra-processed foods, if you really like them, you should have as a treat. There's this very strange food called a Jaffa cake, which isn't really a cake, and it's I'm not sure how many real oranges there are in it, but if I have that once a year, that's fine. It just reminds me of childhood, and I quite like it, but I know that it's really bad for you if you had it regularly.
Yeah, completely.
So what's interesting now is if I had one food I really avoid, it's like orange juice.
Yeah, I've heard you speak about this, and I actually
just because people are always
agree.
offering it to me, and especially when you go to America or a place like this, they sort of just routinely put a massive glass of orange juice next to you for your meal or your breakfast.
It's deemed as healthy.
Yeah, so they're the one I will say no. Take it away, because I used to have so much of it.
Is that because it's very high in sugar?
Yes, essentially, it's just a vehicle for sugar, and most of them, if they're not freshly squeezed there and then, are highly processed.
Yeah.
And have been sitting around in a vat for 3 years before you actually get it, and they add flavours to it and things. So, and it's probably because I drank so much of it, and I gave it to my kids, and I made so many mistakes that I would see that as a bit of a red flag, which people found strange because they say, well, there must be much worse things than orange juice. But I think because it poses as a health drink. That's what really annoys me.
Lastly, what's your favourite dish to cook at home?
I would probably say it would be a veggie lasagna.
Nice.
Home something comfort. About doing those layers I find quite relaxing.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so I want to start with kind of links actually to kind of your elevator pitch where you're kind of getting the message out there to lots of people. But with all this information we have now, kind of across the books you've written, podcasts, information people can get on Instagram, there's a lot of information out there now on how to eat well and how to be healthy. But with all this information, I'm sometimes seeing that we're still not getting any better and some people are still making wrong choices. Why is this? Because we have more information out there now than ever before, and yet still people are sat there like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to eat. Where is this kind of dissonance? Why is it happening?
I think because we're in an age of over-information now. Social media has opened up so that nearly anybody can advise anyone who's listening about what they believe is the latest health trend or science trend without being an expert on health or science. And just by being a very convincing influencer and having a powerful voice. And this means you can open your phone and you've got 10 conflicting stories about what health is. So whether someone telling you should only eat raw liver, to veganism is deadly, to someone saying you must only eat plants, you must only eat organic, you should go on a keto diet, you should be fasting for 20 hours a day. So in a way, if you're not very discerning, or you don't know how to be discerning, it's super confusing. And people are now confusing influencers with experts.
Yeah.
And I think there's just a blurry line that means people just like to follow someone, and sometimes that advice isn't very healthy.
Completely. And I also feel like with all this information, it can cause stress with people. I know people to go into supermarkets and just be, or look at a menu and just be stressed. I don't even know what to choose anymore. And almost that stress is unhealthy.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, and we're possibly feeding, obsessional behavior about food, and all those, having a really weird attitude to food that is not healthy in itself. So, as you said, if the idea of choosing makes people very stressed, then that's very bad, because food is supposed to be a calming, relaxing pastime, and cooking and everything else about it should be signaling to your body, this is a good relaxing time. So, absolutely, yes. So, so some people are very susceptible to these messages and will get very obsessed and end up, with eating disorders, which is the other, the bad side of this coin about telling anyone to have too many strict rules about eating.
Mm-hmm. What would you recommend to someone who maybe doesn't even know anymore what to believe, what to do? What would you recommend to someone who is in that position?
Well, I'd say read my books. Trust me. But then why would they trust me and not someone else? I don't know.
I am about to transform your sleep, and in turn will transform your life. And that is by introducing you to Healthy Habits mouth tape. I always say, get the fundamentals right before worrying about any supplement or wellness tool. And sleep is one of those fundamentals. By mouth taping, you encourage nasal breathing. And breathing through your nose filters out the oxygen and encourages deeper sleep, deeper rest, better recovery, and more energy the next day. That will then stop you from reaching for that extra coffee or snacking throughout the day. A good night's sleep is the number one wellness tool we should be reaching for. Honestly, mouth taping has changed my life, and I cannot wait for it to change yours. If you're interested to try it, use the code CATCHUPS20 for 20% off your first order. That is CATCHUPS20. Now guys, don't sleep on it and try mouth taping today. Now let's get back to the episode.
Well, trust people who've really have a lot of experience in science, have done clinical trials, have seen the pitfalls of anecdotal evidence, that spend a bit of time working out how someone arrives at a conclusion. Disregard the easy answer. Someone says there's only one way to do this. There's only one simple thing. There's this magic supplement will change your life. All you got to do is to have this green powder, and you don't have to worry about what you eat, or this little trick. Yeah, so you always be wary of those and ignore most anecdotes if they're not backed up by science, and just try and be more critical. Realize that people are trying to sell their message. Some of them might be very genuine and believe it, but doesn't mean that even if they're genuine, that what they're saying is going to be applicable to you. And I think that's the big thing, and shy away from anything too extreme. I think that's the other thing that I like to say is, and I think our message with Zoe is, if we want to do something that's a habit that's going to last a lifetime, not just for 6 weeks to, get you into a bikini. It's changing habits that will last a lifetime, which means that you can't be so strict. Because so we have an 80% rule. If you do most of these things for 80% of the time, 5 days out of 7, you'll be fine. You can keep it going. If you try and be too strict to yourself, then you're sort of doomed to fail. Most people are anyway. And then you beat yourself up about it because you feel a failure, which you shouldn't be, because and it's taking the idea that this is a long-term battle against our food environment, and it's also important to see who the enemy is. And you only have to go into any supermarket to realize who the enemy is. And I think that's quite an important message, to realize that all your life, if you live in this country or the US or similar countries, you're being manipulated by big food companies. And I think, to me, that's a big motivation for people to say, I don't want to be manipulated anymore. I don't want to be told to eat this crap food, with these fake labels and signs and whatever. Let's go back to basics, do more of my own cooking, trust some of my real instincts.
Yeah, trusting your gut is actually a big one, I think. I mean, we're going to get onto the gut in a minute, but I think having that gut instinct about, is this actually what I want to be consuming, or am I being told to consume it?
So does this look like real food?
Yeah.
It can be very hard because the food companies, will put all kinds of things on that packet. They're big a snack bar. They'll have pictures of happy farmers and peasants singing, and make you think they've created something that looks like food. But it's all about being much more critical and realizing that they're just trying to take 5 very simple subsidized ingredients that we don't need, things like corn and wheat and soy, and convert it into this product that looks like food, and sell it to you at a massive markup. And I think that message is really important, that people can see through that.
Definitely. Have you always been into nutrition and the gut?
No.
What was the moment that kind of really got you interested in it? And how have you changed your view on nutrition as a result of that?
Well, the first time I really heard about the microbiome was about 2009. I went to a genetics meeting and heard this professor talking about these bugs that might actually be helpful. And all my medical career, I'd been told that bugs were bad for you. That's, and that's still taught to doctors today. Don't really get taught anything about healthy bugs. It's all about the evil ones that will give you nasty infections and you have to kill them with antibiotics. So that was the first time anyone had spoken about, the dangers of killing off your good bugs could actually influence you really early on. And then that got me interested to do a twin study on that subject, because I was always interested in trying to do something really novel. And so if you think back at that time, it was pretty novel to be doing the microbiome. So that took a few years. It took me ages to get the money. I had to do it in the US. And eventually we got those results in about 2012, I think it was. And at the same time, I was on a skiing holiday and doing a ski touring, walking up mountains and things. And at the top, I felt very unwell. I got double vision, and so had a hard time coming back down. Realized I had a mini stroke, and that took me out of action for 3 months. Recovered, but I was left with high blood pressure and realized I had to do something. And as well as drugs for the high blood pressure, etc. I said I wanted to change my lifestyle. What do I do? And that's when I really from a very selfish point of view, got into nutrition in a big way. I mean, I'd been studying obesity genes and from an academic point of view for at least 10, 15 years, but I hadn't really talked about the practical aspects and advice. And when you start thinking about what do, I started researching it, and that's when my first book on the subject, The Diet Myth, came out, from realizing that we were surrounded by misinformation, all kinds of crap that the government and NHS were telling people, and what every doctor like myself was being taught.
Yeah.
And so that was a real eye-opener, and then it sort of got me angry and motivated to do more about it. So that started my shift away from genetics into nutrition and health and the gut microbiome. And I realized that the gut microbiome is this missing link, really, about why we'd misunderstood how food influences our health, because we hadn't known about this organ, this community of microbes in our gut that basically transform the food into chemicals that then help our body, and then that helps our health. And that was the missing piece that suddenly made nutrition really exciting science, as opposed to a really boring one, as most people have been taught.
And what was one of the biggest changes you personally made during that time when you began to look into it more?
Well, at the time, the advice that doctors were giving and I was following was try and have a low-fat diet, have a few veggies. You only need, the same 4 or 5 every day. Yeah. I used to have a banana every day, but I didn't have a big range of plants. And I'd have lots of pasta and rice and bread, thinking this is what, I'm being told to eat is healthy. And I was, I'd worked out the last 10 years, I'd gained 10 kilograms, and I thought it was all muscle, as most middle-aged men do, but it wasn't. Yeah. So I was overweight, and I was eating the wrong things. I was filling up myself with these starchy foods that were probably making me hungrier. And so realizing, okay, I'm gonna change this, and it was quite hard to change. So I decided to go a sort of radical way. So for 6 weeks I was trying to be a vegan. I didn't know it was 6 weeks. I was going to do it for longer, but I found that was about all I could manage. Yeah. Because I missed cheese too much. But that was a way into it, and saying, okay, and then I had to really teach myself how to cook plants. Because before then, most of my meals had either been, a bowl of pasta, or meat or fish, and 2 veg. And so that was there was a big learning curve, but I was highly motivated by my illness, and also my discovery of the gut microbiome. So I was, into experimenting and doing all kinds of things to improve my gut health.
I think the vegan thing's really interesting, and it's a question I want to go into a bit later in more detail, but I was vegan for 4 years. I had a vegan business as well, and I think I went vegan, probably similar reason to you, is kind of to hone into the natural, and for me it was it was so clean, and I actually had a lot of energy, and I have always been a big one on 30 plus plants. I used to write them all down on my notes to make sure I hit them every week. And I think the vegan movement was a bit sad, because essentially veganism is clean. It is eating variety of plants and nuts and seeds, and then it went into this really processed, plasticky alternative world, and it's now got a really bad reputation. And you had obviously McDonald's jumping on it with the McPlant and all that kind of stuff, and it was like, hold on, I made this decision to eat better and eat more plants, and now all my options are fake. And I felt unhealthy, so I'm not vegan anymore, because my yogurt had more ingredients in it than a normal yogurt, and my alternative, I was like, this isn't right. So it was quite a sad thing with what happened with the vegan diet.
Yeah, so I think it's sort of, you're right. I think it's gone through that, and it is improving again. But that was definitely you end up eating more ultra processed food than you would have done if you'd been on a sort of unhealthy previous diet. So I think it just took a bit of balancing out. But going, vegetarian or pescatarian or flexitarian as I am now. So I cut out meat entirely for like 6 years or so. But then I got B12 deficient, and I found supplements weren't working. So I just felt my body needed occasional meat. So once or twice a month I'll have some meat.
Yeah.
And I kept eating fish, and I never really had any problem with dairy, and I do enjoy dairy, and so my obsession with cheese.
Yeah. And
then realizing that these fermented dairy products are really good for you was another motivation. So I found that with this new approach, it's also I can talk to more people because I'm not labelled as.
We like a label.
A super, I'm not this super vegan that is going to put people off. I'm not, meat eaters can sort of relate to me because I can still say, well, yes, this Wagyu beef is amazing. Yeah. I can talk about all the foods, and I'm not just looking at the latest new creation to get around a vegan problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been an interesting journey. But I do think for people who are thinking about changing their diet, doing something like going vegan for the first few weeks is actually a very useful way in. I don't think necessarily you need to stay there, but for me it was a way to be mindful, and I think this is something we talk about in Zoe now. There's concept of eating food where you're not just automatically eating everything that's put in front of you. So having made a decision to go vegan, it meant that when I was doing medical conferences or whatever, and they have a drinks party or cocktail, there'd be a tray of stuff on it, and usually I just stuff it in my mouth. Now I'm saying, what's in it? What am I eating here? Do I want to eat this? And that's a really important step.
Yeah.
That we now teach in Zoe. But if you have a strong religious food preference or like an ethical one like veganism, you do have that mindfulness built in, and that probably is why you're making healthier decisions as well. So you're not just mindlessly eating whatever someone's passing to you, or eating in front of the TV or whatever. So I think that's an important first step for everybody, and it gives you a couple of seconds to think, do I really want this sausage roll? It looks nice and tempting, but God, when you think what's actually in it, you don't really want it.
Completely. I think we like labels because it's maybe a control thing, or easier, like dietaries, or I am this, or I am that. This is put yourself in a box and you feel safe. But I have this new word which I'm saying, like, I'm intentional. I'm not vegan, I'm not carnivore, I'm not anything. I'm just basically fussy, but I'm intentional with when I want to have meat.
But you could say mindful, couldn't you, as well?
Yeah, mindful, exactly. Are you on the sardine trend? Are you for that? Are you enjoying the sardines having a moment, or is it all gone a bit far?
Well, I'm quite laughing about how sardines have gone from the sort of worst food in the world to the best food in the world in the space of a few months, thanks to TikTok. It is we do live in an amazing time of change. I mean, I've been writing about small oily fish for a long time, and I've always eaten sardines and mackerel, and I particularly love anchovies, which never quite make it for many people other than on pizza. Yeah. But I spend a lot of time in Spain on the coast, and you get anchovies everywhere there. So you can have it every day for breakfast. And so I make sure I'm really into that. So yeah, I'm quite happy with the sardine trend. It is a healthy one.
Yeah.
But I just hope people use that to have other oily fish and vary it a bit. Because probably I've said, I've got a few recipes in my new book, and we sometimes have a choice. You can put anchovies or sardines or both on there. So I've always got cans of anchovies and sardines in my kitchen. So because you can pretty much add it to
anything. Yeah. What about the worry about them coming from an aluminium tin? People sometimes worry about that.
Yeah, I looked into tins and canning, and I don't think there's much evidence of leakage unless it's like 10 years old or something.
Okay, that's good.
So I think the modern cans are much better than the old ones. Mm-hmm. A lot of the research was done on this stuff 20, 30 years ago, where you might have got a bit of leakage. I think there are many more other things to worry about.
Yeah.
And, with small fish, you're getting much less mercury than you would with big fish. And you're probably getting less microplastics as well. So, and you're getting, these really, really big amounts of omega-3. So, benefits far outweigh any potential risks. You can always find some potential downside about any food. Yeah. But you've got to look at the overall balance.
I want to go on to your kind of 6 principles for eating well, because I know you have these 6. Do you mind going through what they are?
I will do. We've increased it to 8, so just to make it even 8. Harder for me to remember them. So,
okay, let's go. Let's do 8.
So, because we added, thinking this through, so with Zoe, how Zoe's doing it, how I was putting it in my book, so we've made it slightly clearer. So the number 1 is eat mindfully.
Okay, so we've touched on that. That's good.
So stop, think what's in it, what am I actually eating, and then what effect does this can have on my body? Is it going to give me a sugar spike? Is it going to give me a sugar, a rush? Is there much fat in it? Is there additives in it? You need that time. Which leaves number 2, which is probably still the biggest one, is eat a big diversity of plants. And we've been talking about this 30 plants a week as a goal, and that correlates in all our Zoe studies with optimum gut health. We think it might be more than that, but 30 is a reasonable objective to aim at in the first place, because most people in the UK are eating around 12 plants.
Wow.
So you're at least doubling the number of diversity of plants you're getting on your plate. And I think realizing that nuts, seeds, herbs, spices are also plants, as well as I count coffee as a plant, which it is a fermented bean. So
it's really good to hear that coffee is good for you, because you do hear a lot of different things about coffee and how you shouldn't have too much and all of that. But I've listened to a few podcasts you've been on, and you've said that coffee is actually healthy for our gut.
Yes, no, it's also healthy for your heart. So studies are really very good now, millions of people, that you get about a 25% reduction in heart disease if you're drinking at least 2 to 5 cups of coffee a day.
Wow, that is really great. I mean, I'm very much a 1 coffee a day person because I get a bit jittery. So I love a coffee.
We'll have a decaf because it probably is nearly as healthy.
Really?
It's not the caffeine that's doing it, it's the polyphenol chemicals.
Okay, what if someone doesn't like coffee? What's your suggestion for them?
Try matcha,
yeah,
which is quite high in polyphenols as well.
Okay.
And there's pretty good evidence that's healthy for you as well.
Green tea?
And green tea is, also very good.
Okay.
There's a lot of evidence from Asia anyway that it does help reduce heart disease. So black tea really doesn't seem to do the same job.
Okay.
Unfortunately for black tea lovers. So
do
try and mix it up with green tea or matcha. It's good to see that matcha sort of trending.
It is, although it makes me sad.
Most of them are so sugary that
Yeah.
I can't have them. I don't know, and most of these coffee shops don't serve it without massive
Blueberry
sugar.
something, or like vanilla, or it makes me sad when that happens to things. Like matcha is a really healthy.
It was healthy, but if you put 4 spoons of sugar in it, it's definitely not healthy.
Exactly. And you see these people trying to make the healthy choices and go for their blueberry iced matcha, and you see this purple drink going around, and you're like, no, this is so sad.
Yeah.
But it is a healthy food on its own.
Anyway, so the 30, and in a way, and then we also, because of this 30 a week, we know some people do struggle to get their, so we produced our daily 30 prebiotic, which is 34, mainly sort of freeze-dried plants in their whole form, which people add to food, and I use that when I'm traveling.
It's amazing.
And so that rule has generally resonated because it means you're putting more on your plate, and it's all about including stuff, not excluding stuff, which I think is a really important positive message for nutrition. Third rule would be eat the rainbow, which we've always known about, but now we know it's because of the defense chemicals, the polyphenols in the plants that give it those bright colors, but also it reminds us that we should also not only the brightness, but also the sort of sharp flavors, the bitterness, the sourness are generally telling us also that's healthy for us. So that's why black coffee, you can tell it's going to be healthy because it's bitter.
Yeah.
And it has these chemicals that like tannins that you can get in red wine that is also healthy in moderation, and olive oil, which can make you cough. The peppery sort of taste is all due to those chemicals. So dark chocolate's another one. So and the broccolis and the cruciferous vegetables. So then we've got fermented foods, which I was just researching because my latest book was on fermented foods, and the science has really caught up in the last few years, and suddenly we know why they're healthy for us. They reduce inflammation, which so reset the immune system. Still don't understand exactly how they do that, but we know definitely they do. But you've probably got to have regular amounts of them every day, rather than small amounts every day, rather than some big amount once every 2 weeks to have that really beneficial effect. So try and tell people to try and aim to get 3 ferments a day into your diet.
I have a quick question on this. So obviously kimchi is a big one for ferments. If I'm cooking dinner, I might kind of have a few forkfuls of kimchi whilst I'm cooking, because I actually do think I have a kimchi problem. Like, I love it. I don't take a prebiotic, sorry. If I have kimchi every day, I pretty much go through a jar a week. Would you say I don't need to take a prebiotic?
Well, a prebiotic has a very different effect to what is the effect of probiotic. So they're complementary.
Okay.
So obviously, I'm a big fan of kimchi because kimchi has about 20 different microbial species in it, but it also, you've got the cabbage leaf, you've got the garlic, you've got the spring onions, I don't know what else you add, ginger, you've got foods in there that are prebiotics, because they're providing some fiber as well. So you are getting a mix of pro and prebiotics by doing that, but you are limiting it to what's in that kimchi. So maybe 5 or 6 of the same ones, whereas if you had a prebiotic one, say like the Daily 30 mix, you'd be getting a much bigger range of fibers that you wouldn't normally be eating. So, in our mix, we've got things like baobab, which you wouldn't normally be tucking into. Seaweed, we've got dried kombucha, we've got all kinds of different berries and other herbs and things. So it sort of depends how broad your diet is, about whether you're going to get that extra benefit. But if we forgot the plant side of the kimchi, if we just thought it was the probiotics, we did a study comparing a probiotic with a prebiotic, because not many people have done that. And we showed that compared to a single strain probiotic, like a Lactobacillus reuteri, or one of the ones been around for ages that we know work, the prebiotic has about 10 times the benefit in terms of improving your good microbes. So they both work, but fertilizing all your microbes seems to be more powerful than just getting a traditional probiotic from the chemist and taking that, which is highly focused, but we're all so different. How do we know which one to take?
Yeah.
So I think I've changed my mind on this. I thought probiotics were generally more beneficial, but this research has changed my mind. So thinking that this fertilizing approach is actually more likely beneficial for more people.
Okay.
But they're complementary, and it could be that they work in different ways. So I think it shouldn't have to choose one or the other necessarily, but if you are going to have a probiotic, have it in the form of kimchi, not a capsule. Yeah.
Okay. So number 4 was fermented foods.
Yeah. So number 5, pivot your protein. So big craze on protein at the moment. Probably overhyped. Most people are getting enough protein. Only 10% of people are probably lacking it. And those people on diets, on Ozempic, are elderly, or doing bodybuilding. But for most of us, we get enough and we can't store it, so don't worry about it too much. But rather than, if you are interested, you want and you want to make sure you're getting enough protein, don't just eat steak. Nothing wrong with it in moderation, but think of beans and legumes, because they're packed with protein, and even mushrooms. You're getting lots of protein there, and it's equivalent if you have a variety of them. But it also gives you a really important fibre as well. So I think it's an important message. And we don't eat enough beans because they're fairly cheap, and the food companies don't make much money from them.
Yeah, there's been a massive protein hype. You see protein breads, protein yogurts.
Yeah, everything is, they're just adding cheap forms of protein into it. This excess from the dairy industry, or these dried whey proteins and things like this. But they're just adding it to crap food. Yeah. And giving it a health halo, and it means you've got to eat the crap food as well. So I'd much rather people ate an extra can of beans than did this. So that's important. Number 6 would be give your gut a rest.
Yes, fasting.
So fasting. So time restricted eating, so that the evidence for regular fast is not really there, but there's pretty good evidence that if you can leave 12 to 14 hours overnight where you're not eating, your gut repairs itself much better, the immune system is much more efficient, your metabolism's better, you're able to control weight, and your gut microbes are generally much healthier. And it also makes you mindful about snacking at night and things. So you might, most people who do this inadvertently lose weight because they're just thinking, well, I'm not going to have, half a packet of digestive biscuits before going to bed just because I'm slightly hungry. You'll think, okay, now I'm going to sleep. I want my gut to sleep as well. Yeah. So that just thinking to look after your gut microbes, they have a circadian rhythm. They need to sleep.
I think you sleep better as well. I mean, I'm quite big on just I take note when I finish my dinner, and then I'm like, okay, I won't eat. For me, I find it easier to push my dinner earlier. I'm a big breakfast person, but I don't have breakfast until about 9. So for me, if I eat at dinner at like 7 and breakfast at 9.
Yeah, no, well, that's probably the most efficient way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But when we did a big study at Zoe, about 140,000 people, and asked them to do this, 2/3 of them preferred to do things later and delay breakfast.
Yeah.
Because they found it easier for them. Most people are not really hungry when they wake up. You might be, in that small group. So 1/3 did like you and actually said, let's have an early dinner so I can have my breakfast at a reasonable time.
Yeah.
I'm in the other category. I'm not hungry in the morning, and so I generally don't eat before 10:30, 11.
Yeah.
I haven't eaten anything this morning yet. I don't count my coffee.
No, because a black coffee doesn't break the fast, does it?
Probably not.
No.
I mean, the science isn't, I wouldn't say 100%, but
Okay.
I enjoy my coffee in the morning, so I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, and green tea as well. My mum's a big one where she's not hungry either. She probably has a first meal at 11, but she'll have maybe 2 cups of green tea between when she wakes up and then.
Yeah, so most people think that's probably fine. It's not upsetting the sleeping microbes too much.
Fine. Okay.
And interestingly, when we did our study, we did find that within 2 weeks, 50% of people had noticed an improvement in their mood and their energy levels, and they felt less hungry and got less bloating just from changing the timings of their meals.
Yeah.
So sometimes a small change can have quite a big effect if you think to notice it.
On timings of meals, I am also led to believe that you should roughly keep the timings the same and consistent. So for me, I roughly eat breakfast at 9, lunch at 1, dinner at 7. And that works well. But then on weekends, things might get thrown a bit. So I might have brunch at 11 and then I might not have lunch and then I might have dinner at 6, or I don't know, it all gets thrown a bit. And then I find that my body's a bit out of sync. Is that has that been studied in terms of like the timing that you eat being important as well?
Well, we did a Zoe study, we called it the social jet lag study, where people are having big difference between weekdays and weekends, which is quite normal.
Yeah.
Especially younger people who are working and then going out and going crazy on a Friday night and catching up the weekend. And it does have an impact on your metabolism and things. So it's not great, and there is a noticeable metabolic change, and your blood sugar levels are more likely to peak and things like this. But I'm wary about saying you shouldn't do it, because it's also fun and it's also part of being young and enjoying yourself, which long term might be more important. So it's not I think if you can be consistent, it's better, but don't do it obsessionally, because I think that could be counterintuitive, and you start to, if someone invites you out for a meal and they can't get a table before 8:30, you say, well, I'm not coming. Well, then you really are missing out on life.
Yeah.
And so, if you travel to Spain or Greece where the restaurants don't open till 9, you're going to go hungry, aren't you? So you have to be flexible.
Yeah.
So knowing, yes, it's nice if you've got a pattern, but don't overdo it. Is my advice. Where are we? We're on number.
I think we're number 6 or 7. I think we're on number.
I should never have done 8. It's far too many.
I think number 6.
Okay. We've got quality, not calories.
Oh, I love this. My brother counts his calories, and it really angers me.
I can't imagine why anyone is still counting calories.
Yeah.
There isn't really any serious nutritional scientists that believe in them anymore.
Wow.
And that all the studies show that even if you do manage to do it, which is incredibly difficult, and most even nutritionists can't do it accurately because all the labels are wrong, and all the portion sizes are wildly estimated and can vary about 30-40% in terms of calories. Even if you do manage it and you're in a strict trial, 90% of people having lost that weight regain it and probably overshoot the other end anyway, because you can do it for a few weeks, then your body just ramps up the hunger signals, your metabolism slows down, and you don't lose any more weight, and you just feel incredibly hungry and unwell. And that's what evolution has taught us. So relying on calories it doesn't work as a mechanism, and food companies love it because they can dress up all their crappy food, their fake food, as long as they have a calorie count that suits people like your brother, to thinking this is good for them, when in fact it is horrible for them and it's going to make them hungrier. So it's used as this massive camouflage, low calorie, low fat as well, I'd put in that category, to con people into thinking this is healthy. Ignore it and think about quality, think about whole foods. It is much more important. Is this food I'm eating, does it look like real food, or is it being reconstituted by the food company to make it look real? But cooking from scratch rather than ready meals is far more important than this calorie concept.
And often really high quality foods are naturally high in calories. I remember being out for breakfast with my mum and we wanted a porridge, and it was like a tahini porridge with some chopped dates on the top, and the calories were like 750 calories or something. And my mum was shocked and then kind of didn't really want the porridge, but I was like, and it was, I think, on par with the full English. And I was like, this is so sad, because the porridge is the healthier option. But obviously you've got dates and tahini in there, which might add up with calories, but it's better food ingredients, better ingredients than the full English. So I think calories on menu really kind of threw people as well.
Yeah, and all the evidence, they've been doing this for about 20 years in the US, and it's absolutely made no difference at all in places like New York, where they've studied it. After a while, people get used to it and they ignore it, or say, well, I've only eaten 800 calories, so now I can have a dessert. And so they go crazy on the dessert and actually have more unhealthy food. And it's totally the wrong message, because you're seeing calories as your surrogate for quality. And,
completely.
And they're pretty much made up, these amounts anyway. There's a good example of chickpeas. Depending on which form you have the chickpeas, you can change the calorie count by about 30%. Whether it's mashed up or whether it's whole or it's fried or it's grilled or whatever, and yet all the databases say they're the same. And similar for almonds, whether it's almond flour, whole almonds, ground almonds, 30% difference. And so it's madness. So first really important lesson is just ignore the calorie. I never look at calories.
No, I've never been a calorie counter. It takes the joy out of food for me.
Also that, but let's get people to look at the quality of the food and gauge it that way, not be told what to think by food companies or governments.
I think we have one more.
And again, really important, reduce as much as possible those ultra processed foods that are the most risky. And we struggle a bit with the definitions of ultra processed food, and there are some health influencers that want us to avoid 60% of all food, anything that's got an additive in it. And I don't believe in that, because some of those are really quite healthy foods, and they might have just added ascorbic acid or like vitamin C. But that would count as a ultra processed food in that very broad definition, which was never designed for consumers. It was designed for research in epidemiology. So our New Zoe app, we designed for the last 2 years a risk score, so putting all the UPFs into 4 categories of so 0, minimal, moderate and high risk, and really only worry about the moderate and the high risk ones, where you tick all the boxes for the things that the food companies are trying to do to get you addicted to it and make you overeat. So they're hyperpalatable, which means they override your appetite signals. They're really fast to eat, so you don't notice you're eating them. You don't have to chew. They're also super calorie dense, and they've got additives that we know are harmful. And put all the words together and you can get this nice score. Very hard to do that yourself.
Yeah, very.
So that's why I think apps, so I always use the Zoe app if I'm shopping, and often, it helps me make better choices. A great example would be, I like cheese, so sometimes I use, a very British thing of cheese crackers. You've got a range of 10 varieties. They all look quite similar. Massive difference in terms of their processing risk.
Can you give me an example of a high risk UPF and then an example of a moderate?
Like a breakfast cereal. For kids, right? Most of them are very high. So whether Fruit Loops or would be the one be the highest, and then but in that same range you can have Weetabix or something which is low risk. And you've got some of those granolas and mueslis. Most of them are medium or high risk, but occasionally you'll find one that are just nuts and seeds. But looking at them is very hard to tell because they're all telling you they're healthy. Here, pick me, pick me, pick me. Really hard. So cheese crackers. So Ritz crackers will be highly processed, but there's something like Thin Crisp, really very low processing risk. So it's really hard for the consumer.
It is, but an app like Zoe to go through whilst you're in the supermarket, that's very helpful to know.
Yeah, and once you've done it a few times, you know what your favourites are.
Yeah.
And you can sort of, you don't need it every time, but if you're getting into something new, breads is another area. It's a complete nightmare. It takes you hours to look at the back of label. And you need very good eyesight. So it's just to read the barcode and get an idea.
What about seed oils? Because this is another one we're hearing a lot about. Some foods might have organic rapeseed oil in it, but someone might put that down because it's a seed oil. What are your thoughts on the seed oil world?
Well, I defer to my colleague, Professor Sarah Berry, who basically spent 20 years studying fats academically and tells me that there's no evidence that seed oils are essentially bad for you. It's the context to which they're used in that are bad, because generally they're used in cheap products that are highly processed. There are other things that are bad about them. But essentially we shouldn't be demonizing seed oils per se. There's nothing actually wrong with that, and the data that all these anti-seed oil influencers use is very poor. It's test tube studies or mice, but all the human trials show it's fine. It doesn't mean that they're anywhere as good as extra virgin olive oil,
of course,
which I think if you can afford it is the only oil you should use because it's so beneficial.
People are shotting it now, and people are shotting olive oil. Is that good for us, or again, has social media slightly taken this too far?
I think they probably have taken it too far. I tried when I was writing one of my books. I was in Barcelona at the time, and I thought I'd heard that Greek fishermen used to have a glass of olive oil in lieu of breakfast. Their very early breakfast, they went out. So I said, I'll try this. Got some Alberchina olive oil, had a glass like this, and I went to get my hair cut, and 20 minutes later I'd fainted and I was on the floor of the
No.
so something happened. So I think I would be a bit wary about taking too much. A little sip maybe.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
So that's my personal experience so I gave up my olive oil shots.
Yeah.
But I do like olive oil, and I have I get through a lot of it.
Yeah, it's great. I love olive oil as well. People get scared about the burning point, or when you're cooking with it. Is that something to worry about, or are we okay?
No, that's rubbish. That's a myth.
Okay.
Only, that smoke point comes, I think, around 205 degrees. So you've got to be really doing wok frying with it to produce that. And so it's a very rare use of it. So if you're wok frying, then maybe use a vegetable oil.
Okay.
Everything else, most of the temperatures are below 200 degrees.
Okay.
And it doesn't reach that smoke point. And even if it did, there's no proof that it's actually that unhealthy.
Okay.
Compared to vegetable oils.
Yeah.
So, I don't think American chefs used to say use peanut oil and these other things instead because they have higher smoke points, but the other components of the fats are not nearly as healthy.
Okay.
So don't worry about it.
I want to talk about food being medicine and the link between food and your diet and cancer. So what are the studies here? Is there enough studies out there to prove that your diet has an impact when it comes to cancer or not? I've heard so many mixed thoughts on this.
Data are quite consistent in population-based studies showing that poor diets and things like the standard American diet or high UPF diet is associated with extra cancer risk by about 20%.
Wow,
so
okay.
Across the board. Doesn't mean all cancers have been proven in that way, but in general, that is pretty consistent from population studies. It's not the gold standard, because to do a gold standard, you'd have to randomize people to 2 diets for 5 years, get them to stick on it, and then see what happened at the end of it in terms of cancer risk. And there's limited studies. There are some who've done things like bring meat in and out of the equation to see if meat affects it. But at the moment, we have to go on the population studies.
Okay.
So what they haven't really shown is precisely what the factors are. We do know that fibre is important, and that the more fibre in the diet, the more you reduce your risk of cancer. I don't think they've shown anything on protein, for example. And in terms of individual foods, I don't think that there's much really good data on that. But it makes sense that diet is an important factor.
Yeah.
It's often mixed in with social factors, so sometimes it's hard to separate out education and economic activity and exercise and all these other things, and smoking and bad habits and pollution, etc.
Yeah.
But it's pretty consistent that diet is a major factor in cancer.
Okay.
And one reason why young people are getting more cancer, so particularly colon cancer.
Yeah, you focused on cancer a bit. I read you focused a bit on bowel cancer. Apparently bowel cancer is on the rise. Yeah,
so we're part of a consortium that's got a very big grant, a big US, UK group of scientists that are looking at these cancers in people in their 30s and 40s that didn't used to happen before. And the rates have sort of quadrupled.
Wow.
And we think that a lot of this is due to exposure to ultra-processed foods from birth. And this is the first cohort that's really had this, because it's only really since about the 1980s that babies were exposed to ultra-processed baby food, infant formulas, and some have just continued with it. And so that's the cohort that seems to be affected.
Interesting.
And so that is probably impacting their gut microbes. They can't then help the immune system, so the immune system can't then fight off the cancers that normally every day our immune systems are batting back cancer cells.
Yeah.
So so suddenly if your immune system is not working well, then some of these cancers will get through. That's probably the main thing we're looking at, but we're also looking at pollution levels, microplastics, pesticides. These are all things that have changed in the last sort of 40 years in exposures. So keeping an open mind, and it could be a mixture of them all.
Yeah. My mum got diagnosed with breast cancer last year, and it's funny when someone gets diagnosed, suddenly everyone becomes an expert in what they should and shouldn't do. And the first thing she did was cut out alcohol. That stopped straight away. I wouldn't say she was a big drinker, but she liked a glass of wine now and again, but that's completely gone, which has been great. But people have said to her things like, you shouldn't eat bananas and you shouldn't eat sourdough. And I would reduce, so she was eating like a stuffed date with some nut butter and dipped in dark chocolate. They said, oh no, the date's too high sugar, you shouldn't eat that. So she was kind of there like, I don't really know what to do. And everyone suddenly becomes an expert in that. And they say, obviously, cancer feeds off of sugar, which I don't disagree on, but I feel like a date is a different form of sugar. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think your mum shouldn't listen to everyone that gives her advice on specific foods.
Yeah.
Because nobody knows the answer about specific foods, and it's important to think about your whole diet and your whole plate, not one particular item, because when they go into our gut, they're all mixed together.
Yeah.
And I think really important to think of that, but if you think of, if you want to prevent cancer, the way to do that is to have the healthiest gut microbiome you can. And to do that, you need diversity. And you need diversity of plants. And you don't want, massive excess of sugar, but if you're eating lots of plants, you're not going to get that.
Yeah.
And so, we did a study not of breast cancer, but of melanoma, and the people that survived longest had the best gut health.
Okay.
And they had, the best plant-based diets. So I would say to her, eat everything, but just get the most diversity on your plate. There's some evidence that fermented foods can help as well, because they help the immune system, and you really want to be boosting your immune defenses as much as you can. And there are a few specific foods that might be good for cancer, but again, the data's not perfect.
Yeah.
Some evidence that lots of mushrooms and fungi help with chemotherapy and generally your cancer-fighting immune cells. So again, people may just have one type of fungi, but again, if you can get a big variety, and that's why we put 8 different fungi into our daily 30, because you don't normally get you can't get all your lion's mane and your cordyceps that way. So I'd give the advice would be just stick to this, having a really healthy gut.
Yeah.
Don't listen to advice about individual foods. Again, it comes back to this idea: if someone's offering you a simple solution, all you need to do is cut out all sugar.
Yeah.
All you need to do is eat walnuts or something. It's not likely to be to be the truth.
No, it's talking in like absolutes. It's just a bit, but it's
as well. Also, don't just believe anyone who comes out on the street and says, I've heard this is really good.
Yeah.
Because I read it in the Daily Mail or something. Doesn't mean that's just. So everyone needs to be a bit more discerning, a bit more critical. Say, okay, where are the studies?
Completely. On this, you obviously mentioned about the importance of plants. One thing what we're seeing a lot of now is the carnivore diet, and everyone kind of eating 6 eggs and steak and organs and little to no plants, that's all gone a bit crazy. Where's this come from, and why are they saying it's good? Because I think for a lot of people that's like goes against everything that we've all been told.
Well, I think it's all driven by the sort of gym bro culture of middle-aged guys trying to get big muscles and impress people and doing sort of macho type things as perhaps a reaction to the anti-vegan sort of trend. It's the complete opposite, and I think it's caught on because when people go onto it, they do feel often better because they may actually be giving up some ultra-processed food. If they are, cooking from scratch, having lots of meat and eggs, very simple meals, but at least they are probably high quality. And so for several weeks they will feel better. But if you look at 6 months, 2 years down the line, they're starving their gut microbes. And most of them are in denial about the importance of fiber, which is overwhelming in the scientific literature. They don't like to think about gut microbes. They start to think they're irrelevant. They convince themselves, and you just hear this nonsense from these people, sort of in denial of the scientific facts. So short term it works. Nothing against people doing it as a reset, but then you've got to look after your gut microbes, because otherwise you're just starving the good ones to death, and you'll just have the ones that eat bits of saturated fat, that are often the pro-inflammatory ones, and you'll be messing up your immune system long term. So if you are into it, try and find a way to look after your gut microbes as well. And that, don't just disregard the science.
No, for sure. Tim, we've covered so many different areas, but I'd love to finish with a question about your career. So what would you say success for you looks like in your career now? Because I feel like it's taken on many different routes and many different paths, but what does success look like for you now?
Success for me is changing the dietary habits of millions of people. What a
great statement. I think that is a great that would be amazing.
And I'm not there yet.
No, it's hard. It's very hard. Also, I guess to reach those who are stubborn. I feel like we are quite stubborn in the UK. And those who don't want to listen but need to listen. I think that's hard as well. So
a lot of the people I'd reached, through Instagram and people listening to podcasts, etc., is a select audience. What was really quite inspiring was doing this TV series on Channel 4 and reaching a new audience. And we had great viewing figures. Several million people watched this, and people who wouldn't have normally heard about any of this stuff. And so I can be getting a cab in London, and suddenly the cab driver says, "Oh, you're that bloke on the telly. Me and my wife are now doing your, following your diet," and that's great.
Amazing.
Because that's a totally new audience. So that really is what I want to be sort of working on more, is rather than preaching to the converted, is trying to get the word out there more. And change all this misconception about about what good food is.
I love that, because often people's algorithm, those who are looking for it get it. So if you're looking for healthy recipes, Zoe will come up, and you're feeding great information to those who are looking for it. But I guess it's accessing those who aren't looking for it but need it.
Need it most. Yes.
Yeah. But I think what you're doing is amazing, and I've loved talking about all of this today. So thank you so much for joining me in the kitchen. It's been great.
Been a pleasure.
Thank you guys so much for listening. And wow, Tim is such a legend, and I absolutely loved having him in the kitchen. I really hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did. Next week, I am joined by Kate Moyle, who is a sex therapist. We are taking our talk on health and wellness to a whole new angle, and it's going to be so fascinating. If you do not want to miss the episode, which I'm sure you don't, then click that follow and subscribe button wherever you're listening so you are reminded on Tuesday when the episode goes live. Guys, thank you so much. As always, I really, really love your support and need it for the growth of the podcast, so thank you. See you next week.